Hello, everyone. It's time for Vanna Chicagoland Stories, the podcast. I'm your host, Pete Costanis. This is episode 264, season 11. Today's date is October 10th, 2023, and welcome to the program. On today's program, I will talk about this TV show called The Sportswriters on TV. And this was very unique and very entertaining. I'll talk about my memories of this show, and its history and who was on it. Also, I will talk about my memories of Dekoven drugstores in Chicago, and I will mention about the 75th anniversary of the TV station WMAQ TV Channel 5 in Chicago. That happened this past weekend. Okay, so we got a full house. Right now, the program will go into a commercial break. This program is brought to you by Aquafresh toothpaste. I remember these from the late 70s and the 1980s. So here's a commercial from 1979. I remember this one very well when I was growing up, and I used to see this on television all the time. So sit back and relax, and I'll be right back with the program. Thank you, everyone.
I don't care what everybody's using. You're using a fluoride paste to fight cavities.
But Mom, I need this gel for fresh breath.
Pardon me. My family uses double protection Aquafresh.
Aquafresh gives you all the cavity-fighting fluoride of the leading paste and all the breath freshener of the leading gel. Concentrated in one toothpaste.
Fluoride for fighting cavities.
And gel for fresh breath.
Thanks. We'll get Aquafresh, too.
Double protection Aquafresh fights cavities and freshens breath.
Okay, everyone, I am back. I hope you enjoyed the commercial for Aquafresh toothpaste. It's still around. You can still buy it. I haven't used it in a long time. Usually I buy Crest or Colgate, those two brands. But those commercials that aired on TV were aired frequently during the late 70s and 1980s. And there was another toothpaste that I remember was AIM. I don't know if it's still around. I haven't seen it. I think it is. And they were big and very competitive. I remember Gleam. Do you remember that? I don't think they make it anymore. Anyway, at the beginning of the program, I mentioned I'm going to talk about the Sportswriters on TV sports program show. Also, my memories of the Dekoven drugstores in Chicago. And I will mention about the 75th anniversary of WMAQ TV Channel 5 in Chicago. Before I get started, I'll mention one thing. When I posted this on social media that I'm going to talk about Sportswriters on TV, it started slowly, but then people noticed it that I'm going to talk about this, and they got too excited. Like, whoa, I can't wait to hear this, and they missed this show, and they loved it, And one thing I want to mention, I've said this many, many times. I'm not a sports fan, but this show, I'll share my memories of this show anyway. My brother was a huge fan of this show. He watched this every week, and he loved it, And what I remember was them sitting around on a poker table, and they're smoking cigars, and they're discussing. See the newspapers on the table, all that. And I watched maybe one or two. And they were right. It was very entertaining, and they just tell it like it was, which is great. It really is. Okay. So, any other news for me? Nothing. I'm doing fine health wise. Everything's okay. I'll have a doctor's appointment at the end of the month, October 30th, and then I will go for my urologist November 29th, right after Thanksgiving, and I'll go to my oncologist February. So, so far so good. I hope in between nothing will happen, but I feel fine. Yeah, okay, so for something, the birthday greetings are still coming. And that was from October 4th. Then today's October 10th. And I get a few trinkles, they're trickling in. Excuse me. They say happy belated birthday. That's nice. But, it's, I'm 60 years old. It's time to move on. Oh, boy. He sure made an impact on a lot of people, including myself. So, okay. So now let's get to the fun stuff. First up, I'm going to talk about the Sportswriters on TV. That was a sports talk show that was produced by a man named John E. Roach. And it was hosted by four men. Their names were Bill Joss, Bill Gleason, Ben Bentley, and Rick Tellender. To me, the only one I recognized mostly was Rick Tellender, because I think I see his face in the, I don't know what newspaper he wrote. Pardon me if I made a mistake. Either the Tribune or the Sun Times. I used to see see his face there. Okay, and I'll give you a little history of this. And this was started as a radio program on WGN Radio in Chicago. I don't know when it started. I'm not sure. But then it moved to television. I don't know whose idea was it, but it's a great idea. And its first airing was in December 1985 on Channel 32 WFLD TV. And they had the same set, that those men sat. And so they had these four men. Ben Bentley was the moderator. So did that. And the premise of the show was they would sit around and they would discuss what was going on in the sports world. And they would have discussions, sometimes heated, but not crazy, which was that made it interesting. And you would hear what one guy said to the other, their opinion, or they would argue too. They would have guest appearances. Like, for example, they had Bill Veeck, the owner of the Chicago White Sox. Someone on X, Twitter, or both, mentioned that Mike Ditka was on the show, and I don't know if it was true that he came on the set drunk, and he started arguing with these guys. I don't know, but I wish I'd seen that show. That would have been interesting. So let's see. So you, in the beginning of the program, you would hear a typewriter. I mean, do people have typewriters anymore? No, I don't think so. And then they were, and then they'll start the show. And the funny thing about this, the panelists did not drink beer on the set, which is great. That's wonderful. I mean, that's unprofessional, so like that. So I like the ages of the men. So, for example, Ben Bentley was born in 1920. Bill Gleason was born in 1922. Then Bill Joss was born in 1931, and Rick Tellender was born in 1950. So you have that. So, but, Rick Tellender was the youngest one in the whole group, and I don't. He must have been amazed, or I don't know if he felt left out in the discussions, which wasn't true at all. But these guys had experience covering news story, sports news stories like that, and like that. So it was only on Channel 32 for 1 year. Then it moved to Sports Vision, which was, do you remember when you get on TV and you would get Sports Vision? And then it was there for a long, long time. Then it moved to the Sports Channel Chicago, which was Fox Sports. And that lasted until, but let's see, so then it went, excuse me, so it went to Fox Sports Network, FSN, like that. But I don't think it's there anymore. I think it is. I'm not sure. So, and then the show ended in the year 2000. And the reason was they didn't renew the show. I don't know how these men felt like that. So let's see. So according to this interview, just a moment, please. And but it was a big, the thing was, the show was for an hour, and you had like 3 sports writers and a boxing ring announcer sitting around at a poker table. And like I said before, they had the newspapers scattered all over the table and the ashtrays. The most obvious thing they had on the show was the cigar smoking. And I think it was Ben Bentley and Rick Joss smoking. I don't know if Bill Gleason smoked. I don't remember. Maybe he did. But can you imagine like sitting there for an hour and they're talking and they have the cigars? And I don't think you could do that today. So you're sitting there. And when I see that, you would get the urge to cough like this. Like that. You wave the smoke like that. I don't know how Rick Tellender dealt with that. I don't know. It was funny like that. And let's see. So it was a big hit, and but the end of the decade, this show was available for 10 million homes. So it wasn't just Chicago. It was like all over the country saw this, and they find it fascinating. Oh, they found it fascinating indeed, like that. And there might be a discrepancy. I think the show ended in 1998 or 2000 or something like that. But maybe, well, I don't know, like that. So let's see. So here's a little more history. I just found out about the radio show. It said in 1975, Bill Gleason, he wrote for the Chicago Sun-Times. He created a Sunday afternoon program called the Sportswriters Show, and that was on WGN, and that was great. I don't know, and he brought along his friend Bill Joss, and the sports editor at the time was George Langford. And then he hired Bentley. Mr. Bentley, he did that. Yeah, Ben Bentley. And it was a big hit on the radio, and a lot of people tuned in. And then also there was, and also the other person was on the show was his name was Lester Munson. And he appeared on later seasons of the show, and was fascinating, like that. So, like I said before, it debuted in December 1985, and then they brought like Rick Tellender and the others like that. And the funny thing is, Rick Tellender mentioned one thing. He was the youngest person on the show, and because they needed somebody without a prostate problem. I should know. I had that. So it was very, very fascinating and great to watch if you're a sports fan. Sports fans love listening to people who write sports, do the sports on television. And, most of the time they're right. You may disagree with them, that like to this day, like that. So I can understand that. So it must have been a couple people mentioned like when the Chicago Bears won the Super Bowl championship. They had some shows dedicated to that, and because some people mentioned it on social media, and it was another so they mentioned that. I'm sorry, and then one program they had is when Comiskey Park closed and they built a new stadium, and I think they did some sort of tour, on the last day when it was going to open, and they were walking around. I think it was true. I'm not sure. I've never seen the show like that. So I would love to see that. If there was a video of that thing. I don't know. We'll see about that. Okay, and let's see what else. But they brought some guest stars like that. They brought Bill Veeck, Mike Ditka. I don't know if they brought players. Maybe they did. I'm sure they did. Like I said, one thing about the set, it was like a poker table, and then very unique poker table, and the men were somewhat dressed nicely, and others no. And then they had that lamp, the mosaic lamp that says Budweiser, or sometimes it says old style beer, like that. And I don't know if it was rehearsed. The show was, but sometimes it was the men ad lib as well, like that. But that would be interesting, like that. As the show went on, Ben Bentley was very sick, and he was forced, and he retired in the mid 1990s. And they brought in some people just to fill in. There was like Lester Munson, Joe Mushill, and Mike Mulligan. And so that's a shame, like that. But you remember those four guys, like that. You really do remember them. And so Ben Bentley died in 2001. Bill Gleason died in 2010. And Bill Jost died in 2012. And Rick Tellender, he's the last survivor. I don't know what he's doing now. I don't know. I have no idea. But I hope he's doing well. And so right now, I'm going to play the introduction of the Sportswriters on TV. This is from 1991. This clip is courtesy of FuzzyMemories.tv by Rick Klein of the Museum of Chicago Broadcasting. I hope I get that right. Yeah, it's the Museum of Classic Chicago Television. Sorry, Rick. So I only have the introduction of the show, and has the sponsors, and you hear the typewriter. It's like going back in time. Listen to this. So here it is, the introduction of the Sports Writers on TV show from 1991. And this is the introduction. Okay, and I'll be right back, everyone. Thank you.
Don't touch that dial. You're getting the most complete coverage of Chicago's professional and amateur sports right here on Sports Channel. The Sports Writers on TV is brought to you in part by the Jerry Gleason All-American Automotive Group. You're never more than minutes away from the best car deal in town with Gleason. By True Value Hardware Stores. Got a tough job to do? You can do it with True Value Hardware Stores. And by Old Style, double brewed from artesian spring water. Old Style and Old Style Light. It's our great beer.
This show was taped Monday, so for those of you watching later in the week, you'll understand why these guys are making even less sense than usual. But more than that, thanks so much for watching. From Chicago, it's the Sports Writers on TV with Bill Jost of the Chicago Tribune, Sports Illustrated's Rick Tellender, From the South Bend, Indiana Tribune, Bill Gleason, and yours truly, your host and moderator, Ben Bentley.
Okay, everyone, I am back. I hope you enjoyed the introduction of the excuse me, the Sportswriters on TV TV show. This is from 1991. That was the introduction. I bet it brings back memories to most people like that. You know, on today's sports programs, you have people doing okay. I mean, we have ESPN, you have Fox News, you have not Fox Sports News, excuse me, and then, but you have these people that are yelling, screaming, and then they sit around, and they have other people discussing it, and I won't name names, but you got a couple guys that are yelling, and they get too emotional or they go over the top. I don't know if they're faking because I wouldn't know. I have no idea. I would ask my brother because he enjoys watching this. Like then I always ask him, "Is this for real? Are these guys really talking like that?" And he goes, "Yes and no." That's like that. But when you see women sports anchors, they don't yell. They just they're very nice, calm, and they're very knowledgeable, which is pretty good. But it's nuts. It really is when they do that. But I avoid watching that. I don't want to watch that. And then of course you have fans who think they know everything, and they really don't. Not in my opinion. I mean, they know about the sport, but they claim they know everything about it, and also other people that don't know, which is kind of annoying. Like that. Listen, I've always said this many, many times. If you like the game, you like watching the game, just enjoy it. You'll be happy. If your team loses, don't sulk and don't take it out on other people. Just wait for the next time, and they'll get better, Be optimistic, be positive. I always say, I'm just not sports, just everything in life like that. Okay. So, if you want to see some episodes of, there's a couple episodes of the Sportswriters on TV show on YouTube. If you'd like to go back in time and watch that. And I watched one, and it's pretty fascinating. Yeah, it was like that. It seems so sedate compared to now. But, there was no technology or anything like that. No. That's, in my opinion, that's the way it should be. So you can't change it. Okay. So that's it for the Sports Writers on TV. So I apologize to everyone if I'm not very knowledgeable of this program. I did my best. I really did. And I hope everyone will enjoy my version of explaining the show on this podcast. Okay. I feel much better now. All right, so now let's get down to the second subject, and that is the Dekoven drugstores. Now, I have a special memory about this drugstore. I lived in Roseland, in the Roseland neighborhood in Chicago from 1969 to 1974. There was a Dekoven drugstore, and it was located at the Roseland Plaza. There was a shopping plaza located on 115th and Michigan Avenue. And my mom shopped there many times. There was Dekoven drugstore. There was also National Foods that was way down, and there was the Coffee Pot restaurant, and there were other stores there. So it was I don't know what else was there exactly, but Dekoven. I just remembered the orange sign, and it said Dekoven drugstore. It was Rexall. I'm sure it was that. They had other locations, and luckily I found an ad from, from 1975, and from the Chicago Tribune. That was from October 16th of that year. And there was one, let's see, for example. So there was one in Roseland, 115th Street. Actually, that was the only one that was in the city, I believe. I'm not sure. Yeah, there was one in. I can't make out the address. So, yeah, it was called Circle Court. But there was one on the east side. It was on 112th and Ewing, and I think there was one on 118th Street and Avenue O. I think it was there. Maybe it moved there. But in the suburbs, it was located in Addison, Calumet City, Downers Grove, Midlothian, Naperville, Tinley Park. They had one in Hammond, Indiana. I think there was one in Blue Island, but it's not there like that. So the man, let's see. So let's see. The man who founded the drugstore, his name was Cy Dekoven, and no, he did not find it. He worked there. His father's Jacob founded that drugstore, and he was an immigrant from Kiev, Ukraine, and so he started the business like that. Um, and let's see. So I think they opened one on Maxwell Street, like about 13th Street and Halsted, and then they just expanded on the south side, and then a couple on north, maybe like that. And it was independently owned, and it was a good drugstore. Not like Walgreens or CVS or Osco. This is a favorite memory of mine about this drugstore. In 1973, I think 73, 74, Miss America visited the store at the time, and my mom was shopping at the store at the time, and Miss America made a personal appearance, and my mom said hello to her, and so she signed an autograph picture, and she gave it to my mom, and you know what? We still have that photo. I still have that. We still have that photo somewhere in the house, like that. And she brought it. She brought it back to her apartment, and she told me who this was. And oh, this is kind of nice. I forgot her name, but but I did look her up. And then the last time she was on TV, she was on the 700 Club. She hosted with Pat Robertson. Just died a few months ago. I don't know what she's doing now, but she's a lot older, but still pretty, but she was beautiful. Oh, beautiful. Like that. And then towards the end of the 70s, it closed, and the Dekoven drugstores were sold in 1980. They were all gone like that. I think some were sold to Perry Drugs. Do you remember that? Maybe like that. And Cy Dekoven, that is Jacob Dekoven's son, he ran the operation. He died in 2007, in February. And but I posted a couple of things about Dekoven drugstores on my Facebook page, Van Chicagoland, and people do remember this drugstore, and they liked it, and it was a great place. Okay. So that's good. So it's another Roseland memory. If you live in the Roseland area, they remember this store. They really did. Okay. And third and finally, I want to mention the 75th anniversary of WMAQ TV, Channel 5 in Chicago. Give you a brief history of that. That first aired on October 8th, 1948. It was 75 years ago this past Sunday. And the call letters at the time were WNBQ, not WMAQ. WMAQ was on the radio like that. And they didn't have much programming then. No, not really. I think one of the earliest TV shows they had was Howdy Doody, and also Kukla, Fran, and Ollie. And their studio was originally on the 19th floor of the Merchandise Mart, in Chicago. And they also aired the first Today Show in 1952 that starred Dave Garroway, and it's still on the air. It was like that. And there was also Stud's Place, hosted by the author, Studs Terkel. So like that. Then it switched to from WNBQ to WMAQ in, I think, in October, not October, I think November, I'm not sure, in 1964. Oh, here it is. It's August 31st, 1964. And they changed the call letters. And it's been like that ever since. Like that. And then on the radio, it changed from WMAQ 670, WMAQ is going to make me rich. Remember that slogan? Everyone still does, to The Score. And that's WSCR, which is still on the air to this day. And so it was at the Merchandise Mart for about 40 years. It was there a long time. And now it's at the NBC Tower. It's on North Columbus Drive, about 6 blocks away. And it's still there. I still watch the news sometimes on that. And watch a lot of TV programming. They had local shows. I won't mention them now, but someday I will, because they had some that a lot of people didn't remember, like that. So that's great. So happy 75th anniversary to WMAQ TV Channel 5. All right. So that is it for today. I'll do a recap of what I talked about. I talked about the Sportswriters on TV show that aired on Sports Vision. First it aired on Channel 32, then Sports Vision, and then into Fox Sports. And also my memories of Dekoven drugstores, and also the 75th anniversary of WMAQ TV, Channel 5 in Chicago. This excuse me. This podcast will be published later on today. I'll give everyone a heads up. I will do that to let them know that it's coming. And this will be available wherever podcasts are: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. Also be posted on my blog, vanishchicagoland.blog. Excuse me for a second. Drink some water. Also, it'll be on my YouTube channel, Advanced Chicagoland Stories, the podcast. People still ask me, where do I find your podcast? Please subscribe or do a search, and please subscribe. You'll get a new episode. You'll be notified. It's there. Also, it'll be posted on my social media accounts: Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. You can click on the link, and it'll take you right there. Okay. I will do another podcast episode this weekend. We'll see whatever subjects I'll talk about. It takes a lot of thinking. Excuse me. We'll see about that. Okay. So this is Pete Costanis, your host of Van Chicagoland Stories, the podcast. Thank you for joining me. It's a beautiful sunny day. It's cool. It's autumn. So it's nice. Or it's going to rain the rest of the week. Oh, well. So here's bye-bye for me, and here's Ray Rayner with a little traveling music saying bye-bye-bye. Take care, everyone, and so long.
We have to go. Bye, bye, bye.